we're going to get straight into this afternoon's session because we have our next keynote speaker, and then we have, of course, the second deep dive panel around AI, the future of work and organisational practice. So for our keynote this afternoon, it's my pleasure to welcome someone to the stage who comes from within the region, based out of Bragato Research Institute, of course, over in Waido Blenheim, and it's Dr. Juliet Ansell. Now, Dr. Juliet came to us recommended by a mutual friend, Dr. Bruce Campbell, who some of you may have heard speak through previous events. I'll be aware of. Bruce is someone that I hold in very high regard, and so rather than, I hate reading from bios, so I actually asked Bruce if he had any notes to share about Juliet. And he said, since stepping into the role as CEO of Bragato Research Institute, Juliet has sharpened BRI's focus on research that delivers huge value to growers, improving resilience, supporting our premium wine production and lifting regional productivity. Under Juliet's leadership, we are expanding partnerships across industry, iwi and science to ensure our research not only drives innovation and knowledge, but also practical results, jobs, exports and long-term sustainability for Te Tauihu. And Bruce also reflected on, and he was a contributor to Tupuna Puno, the Te Tauihu intergenerational strategy, and he said he thought she was a brilliantly fitting speaker given the continuing dialogue happening here in the region, the revision for a productive, thriving, future-focused economy shaped by leadership and innovation, of which she'll be the perfect person to take the stage today. So please join me in welcoming Juliet.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Juliet toko ingoa, no London, oku te puna, kei te noho o ke waikawa. Welcome everybody here. So I'm going to talk you through a few things today, a little bit about myself and a little bit about the Institute. But I suppose, having listened to the talks this morning, there's perhaps more of a focus on the human side of innovation in my talk, I hope. So let me just orient myself. So this is what I'm going to talk about. Sorry, I have a bit of a habit of turning away from the microphone, so I'll try and remember to speak. So like I said, yeah, who we are, what the industry is. But I suppose it's more about how we work. That's what I want to talk to you about today, because I think this is something that is technology as a tool. I really do think that it's important that we understand how we use it. And so I'm going to tell you a bit about what we've been doing and what I've been doing since I've arrived. So I was born into a family of creative artists. So I mean that quite literally. My father was an author and a biographer, jazz musicians. My sister's a poet. My mum is a seamstress. And my other sister is a journalist or studied journalism. So I was a bit of an outlier. I was a bit out of water in my family. I'm a scientist. I've always had this intense curiosity about the world around me, and in particular understanding it at a very small level. So I used to have experiments in my mum's linen cupboard with Drosophila, so that's fruit flies, sort of escaping in these clouds down the corridor. And so that's sort of the very start of my journey with being comfortable with discomfort. Interesting, that's already come up already once today. I got hooked on discomfort. I was really lucky to go through what I consider myself lucky to go through a series of culture shocks. And I think it's those culture shocks at a very early age which shaped me into who I am, how I work with people. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. I've had this up here for a while now, you're probably wondering about it. So no one in my family had been to university before. I was the first person, went to a state comprehensive school in England, Thatcher Britain. My family didn't have a lot of money, and somehow I managed to end up at Oxford University, which is just a world away really from my upbringing. And I was, again, thinking, what am I doing here? There's this land of privilege and immense history and knowledge, and I kind of felt through most of my time there studying that I was a bit out of place. But that was nothing to prepare me for when I landed in Africa. So I did field work. I studied parasites. And there's not many parasites in the UK, so I had to go to the tropics. And this is how I landed up at the age of 23 in Tanzania. And this actually blows my own mind a little bit now because I have a 23-year-old, and this was before mobile phones. I had to, walk down to the local village and make a call to my poor mum. But so 23, I ended up there, and I had to find a lab. I had to find somewhere to live. I then went round to all of these really remote villages and had to ask for urine samples from their children. A lot of the places I went to, they had not seen a white person and they'd not seen a Land Rover. So I'd kind of, you might be wondering what's the relevance of this, but it is actually going to become relevant, I hope. Anyway, I'd turn up, and then I'd zoom into the village, and then all these kind of children would run away screaming at the car, and then I'd get out, and then it would be worse. But what I learned during this time was I had to meet with the local education department. I had to meet with chiefs. I had to sit down. And I was 23. I wanted to go in there. I wanted to collect my samples and get back to the lab and get my work done and then get on with my research. And I had to learn patience. And I had to learn that actually talking to people, understanding the culture that I went into was really important. Not only for a mark of respect, but to just actually listen to what they had done before. The history of what has happened before in a place is what is going to inform the future. And this definitely shaped how I approach everything I've done since then. It's made me look for an adrenaline buzz, because I think after that, it's got to be higher and higher bar that I'm throwing myself into something that I didn't know if I could do to start with. It's also made me look for understanding that situation when I go into it and getting to know the people and listening and being patient first. So I don't have notes, which is the way I prefer to speak, but sometimes it can be a little bit erratic. But what that's all to say is that I arrived in the wine industry having known nothing about it, but approaching it in that same way. And a little bit about Bragato research. So it's a research institute for the wine industry. We are funded by levies, which are paid by all wine grower members, 100% of them. And it's also funded by government and commercial companies that put further money in as well. And this is Romeo. So I've been asked many times in my life where Romeo is. Well, I think I've finally found him. He was a really famous Italian viticulturalist who came over to the Antipodes, and he found ideal locations for growing wine, particularly the Pinot region in central Otago. And that's who we're named after, and I think that's really nice because that sort of fits with my values of a nod to the past, respecting that past. And he was obviously very curious. He was an innovator of his time, and so that's who we're named after. We have a head office in the location where most of the wine is grown. So we have our offices and our research winery in Blenheim, in Marlborough. If anyone ever comes over the hill, once the flooding has gone, please do come in, and I'd be really happy to show you around. And I've got a fantastic team of other curious scientists and people that would be happy to share their passion with you about what we do there. But in Canterbury, we have a lab based in the university there as well, where we're doing our grapevine breeding. That's a picture of our winery, so opened in 2020. Not the best way to start, but it's been 6 vintages since then. We're getting up to capacity now where we run ferments throughout our vintage. So it may be from a trial that we've run on the orchard, or it may be something that a commercial company wants to do something in confidence that we will then run for them. It's been modelled on USCA Davis, so it's an absolutely state-of-the-art research winery. We do everything in triplicate, and we're really lucky to have that. I inherited a fantastic team and fantastic assets when I came into this role. But what is our purpose? Well, we really are the link between the science community and industry, and I see this as a responsibility. I've been a scientist, and I've also worked in industry before, and I know that it's really important that those two groups speak the same language or learn how to at least speak with each other. That's what we do. We want to be relevant to industry, and I suppose that's something I want to talk to you about how we have done that. When I arrived, obviously I didn't come into nothing. There was a strategy that existed. There was a team of people. But I don't think there had been much engagement for a few years with the industry. And I came from a background in horticulture with kiwi fruit. And I think something I learnt there in my time at Zespri was there's no point doing research if it's not for an outcome that the industry need. How are you going to know if the industry need it unless you ask them? So one of the first things that I did when I arrived was to do a survey to all of the members and said, look, these are the types of things we can do. This is the capability we have. What do you think's important to you? What are the things you think we should do research on? Then we brought that all together, and then we brought that to a smaller group of people, to say, this is what the wider industry has said as a priority. What do you think about that? And then with my leadership team, we kind of worked on that a bit more and shaped it into a strategy that can guide us. Because I want to be able to make decisions not just on what's interesting science, but actually on some science that is going to be used, taken up, adopted, and have an impact. And those are the pieces we needed to do that. So this is kind of what it looked like. There was a survey that went out. It was an electronic form. They prioritized things as well. It's funny how when you force people to rank things, it's a difficult thing to do because growers will say everything's important, but we can't do everything. We don't have limitless funds. So we forced them to prioritize and rank. And there was amazing consistency. I couldn't believe this, but there was amazing consistency across regions with big wineries versus small wineries, with growers. All of the things kind of rose to the top in terms of what the top 7 outcomes, priority outcomes were for research. So that was great. It didn't have to go like that, but thankfully there's a lot of consistency. So yeah, we got them to rank them. The other thing we got them to do is say, what's your vision for the next 10 years for New Zealand wine industry? And this is sort of, I think as growers, anyone in the primary industries will know that you're actually thinking sort of season to season. You're very much in the now and the current climate. And I think it's really important that you get people and push those people to say, okay, but if everything is possible, what's your vision? And again, this was something that was a free form. It was, I think we gave them 100 words, and we got so much consistency around what people want. I think that says something about the wine industry. I have found them to be a really aligned, really open industry to come into. Sorry, I'm kind of, this is the workshop that we held that then brought that together. This was the word cloud that came out of those vision statements from all of the people in the industry. So, yeah, premium, quality, sustainability. They're all keen on this reducing emissions, but high-quality wines, that's what they wanted. So that went into design, reshaping, I suppose, the vision for the industry. And these on the right-hand side here, these were actually the 7 priorities that we landed on. And there's a lot of detail in here, but I suppose what my message for this, so this is the outcome. You don't expect it to read that, but this is on a page, what is the research strategy for the industry? And we've got our, is that a pointer? Oh yeah. So these are like our 7 priority outcomes, and it's all about plant genetic resilience, agri-tech, optimizing input, so less chemical, more biological. And we've got a bit of a map here that we can align to, and that is what the industry wants. So this was about engaging with the people that own. There are owners, they're levy payers, and there are users. So if they can't see themselves in this, if they can't see their needs being addressed by this, then I'm not doing my job. So that's why we did it this way. So that's a little bit about how we work, I suppose. I'm now going to take you through a few case studies of how we work with innovation and innovation in action, and how, again, we bring that strategy to life and work with the industry. So this is the Grapevine Improvement Team. These are a team of molecular scientists who are breeding new grapevines for the future. And we have a great molecular lab that's based down in Lincoln. And I suppose one of the other things that we want to do is help to translate the complex scientific world to our growers as well, so they can then make decisions about what they might want to do. There's an example at the moment. Some of you may have heard of the gene technology bill that's going through consideration at the moment for some revisions. And I've always in life tried to take a balanced view of things. It's sort of a scientific discipline, really, that you don't attach yourself to an answer. You have a hypothesis which has many answers, and then you just provide the data, and then the data eventually will come to a place where it's coalescing, and then you do have an answer. But sometimes that can be changed again. Anyway, so keep an open mind is one of the things we do, and providing non-attachment to data for people to make their own mind up. So there are some significant headwinds in the world at the moment. There's geopolitical, climate, there's rising costs, we've got, because of that, disease pressure, and we've got customers wanting different things. And I think some of these proposed changes to the Gene Tech Bill could really help the industry, but we need to help explain to them what that means for us, for the industry, for New Zealand. Here's an example of something one of my team leaders came up with, and I hope it should work for anyone. It's not just a scientific audience. We've done this at a few conferences just recently with all of our growers. So I'm going to use the analogy of a sentence to explain to you what gene editing is. So this is one of the things that will be allowable under the new Gene Technology Bill. It's used at the moment for research purposes. So if we look at that, we've got a vine, and we're saying that this vine is not disease resistant. So if we're going to use gene editing in the form of a point mutation, we just change one letter in that sentence, and this vine is now disease resistant. So 1 point change completely changes the outcome. Or you can do that through a deletion. So you just take away the not, and this vine is disease resistant. So these are all things that actually happen in nature. So this is how biology evolves. This is how species evolve, is that changes occur because of perhaps sunlight or chemical stress or heat stress, and there'll be a change in the genetic code. So that actually happens over time anywhere in nature. What gene editing does is allows us to precisely make those changes, and it speeds it up. But it's not unnatural. It's the same species, it's the same grapevine that those changes are happening in. Cisgenesis is where it's perhaps another variety, and that may then be crossbred. So what this would look like in a sentence is that you take it from another grapevine and the word changes. So this vine is highly disease resistant. And the bit that we're not really talking about doing is transgenesis. This is what you would know as GMO, genetic modification. So that's actually using a different species. So I don't know if there's any Germans in the room. My partner's German, I'm trying to learn. I'm now definitely not going to speak that for you. You can read it. But this basically says this potato is very disease resistant. And that's actually an analogy for what transgenesis looks like. So this is something that we do for the industry. It's trying to translate, I suppose, complex science so that our members can make informed decisions. What else they're doing down there is, as I told you, it's a grapevine breeding program, and they're actually looking for Sauvignon Blanc, which is by far our best-selling wine. It's 80% of the volume. It's well-known all around the world in all of our key markets because of its fresh, light flavour. It's very distinctive. It's great quality. This is really the New Zealand industry, but it's a single clone. So that means it's actually susceptible to diseases. And what we're trying to do with natural breeding techniques is to come up with an alternative clone that's got better disease tolerance, it's got great yield, it's got still the same quality and flavour. And that's what we've been given funding from the government to do. So the goal is to have 12,000 completely new variants. And I think probably the best way to let you see what this is to play the video that I've got on the next slide.
We're here at Bragato Research Institute's new selection vineyard that houses our 6,000 new Sauvignon Blanc clones that were planted here in December of last year. The aim of this project is to develop new clones of Sauvignon Blanc that are better suited to our changing climate and to problems that the industry might face going forward. All of these clones are unique genetic individuals, and we only have a single copy of them, so we're really trying to make sure that they all survive through to maturity. Part of what we are doing in the Grapevine Improvement team is screening them to determine which ones are of the most potential benefit to the New Zealand wine industry. Coming into the next growing season, we'll be measuring certain traits. We've already started doing some screens. The key traits that we're interested in are resistance to powdery mildew, water use efficiency, and frost tolerance. We're facing a changing climate, which will affect how we're able to grow our grapes. There'll be increased disease pressure, changes in the availability of water going forward. So this vineyard is really important to help us build resilience in the New Zealand wine industry.
This is a fantastic way, really, for the industry to have new clones or new Sauvignon Blanc that we can actually grow that are going to be future resilient. And we have the way that the industry is involved in this is that we have a commercial group who meets regularly. We tell them about the research. They come and visit the vineyard. They can actually walk down the rows and they can see different clones and how they're behaving. We we have sort of open days, and at some point, I think in the next year, we will have grapes on those vines. This is the first time they've been planted out. Grapes on those vines, and we can make wines from that in our research winery, and then we can invite those people from the industry in to try the wines. And we've not been able to do that yet, but that's going to be a very exciting point in time. And so, I think this is really the point I wanted to get across to you, was that from that grapevine breeding, which is quite a far out future type of innovation, we're still able to engage and bring the industry on the journey. 7 years is a long time in horticulture, but they're able to hear about it from the very first year. We're 4 years in now, 5 years in, and it means that by the time those clones are ready for commercial release, the industry know about them, they've tried the wines from them, they've seen how they grow, and then there's actually going to be adoption and uptake from that. So the next project I want to talk to you about is a program called Next Generation Viticulture. And again, it's the same principle of working with industry from the beginning. And you see these sites here, the 7 sites throughout the Marlborough region, are actual commercial vineyards. So these are where all of our partners in the program have their normal growing vineyards, and they've signed up for the program, and the experimental trial sites are within those vineyards. So it's probably a step beyond that research vineyard that we have, which is down in Lincoln University, to actually moving the science and the research into the field. And the premise of this was really around, it came from other horticultural crops, apples and kiwi fruit, where they're looking at how the crop grows. And probably one of the biggest free factors in growing a plant is sunlight, and designing the architecture of that vine or that plant or tree around how to capture the most sunlight. And you will have seen, if you've been to Hawke's Bay, for example, the vertical, the change to sort of 2D systems. So that's the idea around this, was to do that. I know grapevines are already kind of 2D, but can we do that in an expanded way? So it's mainly about the new growing systems, and the purpose of this is really for profitability. We've heard a lot, I think, every day. There's increasing costs for any kind of industry. It's the same in the wine industry. And we want to also have an eye on sustainability, and we also want to think about the quality of the wine. You saw earlier my word cloud. Quality is absolutely important. It's not anything we do cannot be at the cost of that. So this is how grapevines normally grow. This one here on the top. So it's sort of like they go out. And what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we're actually going to stop them from growing out that way, and we're going to have them growing up. And then you get the grapes are no longer sort of just in that space. They're growing all the way up to the top. And we had some ideas around what this might look like. We ran some pilot trials, and that's what we're doing now, is actually trialing these different systems through the season and seeing which ones work the best. And the goals here, like I said, it's reducing the management costs. It's looking at reducing variability, also looking at the quality at the end, and some sustainability benefits. So it's early days. I would say you can see here how the grapes are growing bunches all the way up to the top. It's quite amazing to see. We've had our first sort of real harvest this last vintage, and walking in, and you sort of don't expect to see grapes right up here, but that's where they're growing. And they're a little bit more spread out, so a little bit more open, which means that there's less disease pressure. So results are looking pretty good. One of the nicest stories, I think, from this is that I heard on one of these commercial sites. We had the viticulturists on site actually run the trials, and they have their team coming in doing the pruning. We come in and do some research measurements, but it's in amongst their normal operations. And one of them was so kind of happy with what was happening on the research trial that they've just gone ahead and in their own right, and they've expanded it to another whole block. So they're just putting this trial system in, and they're running with it. And that's how you learn, because it's very different in a science environment to be trialing something. You actually want it to be highly controlled. You need to measure it. It's limited a little bit, I suppose, but in the grower hands, it just goes, and they'll try this, and that doesn't work, and they try something different, and they figure out some of the weight of the crop was maybe pulling down on some of the posts, so it had to be a type of post that was this high, or we're learning more because we're working in their space, and they're talking to us all the time. Some of the pilot results from this are that we've got great density, we've got the vigor of the vine, so they don't just keep going and going and going and going and going, they self-terminate, which is actually really important. If they do that, that means we don't necessarily have to prune, which is a massive cost. The fruit is just distributed, like I said. It's got, I thought I heard someone shout out. Great light interception, which was the main goal. And also the quality is pretty good. We've already run some, because this is where we do have fruit, we can actually make wine in our winery and we can taste it. And we did blind tasting. And, there's probably a few people that were skeptical about this, not didn't want it to work, but were a bit skeptical. And so we do blind tasting, and there was no difference. And this is in early years of a trial, so that's fantastic, because I think we can always get better and optimize the system. And this is the sort of visually, what does that engagement look like? Well, we go out into the vineyard, we invite people that are not involved as trialists to come along and go and listen to the viticulturists from the companies talking about what they're doing. And it's all very well us as scientists saying, oh yes, this worked really well and it's great, but that's completely different from grower to grower saying, oh yeah, but how do you manage with your equipment on the pruning, or what do you do when the rows are this far apart? What about your water management? They can actually answer that peer to peer, and they can also bring in new ideas, and we can hear all of that as well. So we do these about once a quarter in terms of inviting out to wider industry, but they're open to anyone. If anyone wants to come and have a look, any of the other members can go and do that. So I just think this is it's a technology innovation in action, and it's the people, they're funding us, but they're also our users. So they've got complete vested interest in helping us with the research, helping it go faster, and they also have the knowledge to make it better. So I've got one more example. This is probably the one that gets the most interest, because it's just, you'll see on my next slide, just looks really cool. This is UV light in the vineyards. And this in itself, I suppose, isn't that new. It has been developed from Cornell University in the US, and they looked at the UV light that was able to reach through. So this, actually not all of it gets through the atmosphere, but there are different types of UV light, and this is UVC. And at Cornell, they actually managed to work out the intensity of the light and the duration of the light that is needed to kill fungi. One of the biggest pests, or the biggest problem for the grapevine industry, is something called powdery mildew. I think there's about, on average, 13 sprays a year to manage this on the grapes. We would love to get rid of some of those sprays, not just for the environment, but because of the cost to the grower. It's probably one of the bigger costs after pruning. So anyway, this technology existed from a research perspective, and someone in Australia, had made one of these autonomous units and offered to work with us. So we're collaborating with the tech company, and working with growers, we found a Whitehaven estate who said, yep, we're happy for you to trial this. And this is on their grapes. Like, this is grapes that they want to make wine from, and they are risking that crop to trial this new technology. So that's something that's really astounded me about the wine industry, the openness to try things and just give it a shot. So this little autonomous robot goes down the rows. It's, yeah, like I said, the broad use of fungicides is on the rise. It's a cost. It's also, it doesn't just kill the powdery mildew, it kills other beneficial bacteria or insects. So we want to reduce that. It's one of our priority outcomes, is to reduce chemical inputs and use other methods. There's also the chance that it could lose its efficacy, and then we're in a pretty difficult situation, because if we don't have the chemicals and we don't have alternatives, then we don't have a crop to make wine from. And yeah, the partners in this were Agri-Automation, who make the UV machines, and also A Lighter Touch, which is another government-funded partnership that wants to reduce the chemical use in the environment. So it's electric, it's fully autonomous, and we have had people watching it as it works, but basically this is a solution. It can run at night. In fact, it has to run at night because you need at least, basically the UVC breaks the DNA, and the DNA can repair given time, but it needs about 4 hours of sunlight to be able to repair. So we have to do this at night with at least 4 hours before sunrise for this to be permanent. We've run the trial this year. Ooh, is that a video as well?
The industry is fully reliant on synthetic fungicides to control diseases, and especially powdery mildew. When broad-spectrum fungicides are used, they kill both beneficial and the target fungi or pathogen. And on top of that, they are also toxic for the environment, and they can also be toxic to the person who is applying them. When you apply the same active ingredient on and on and on, you are likely to develop more resistance over time.
The aim of the program is to see if we can reduce our fungicide input by 50%. We're trialling it on Sauvignon Blanc because of the dense canopies, and we want to test it and prove that we can actually do the applications in Marlborough.
This technology emits UVC light or UVC radiation at levels that will damage the DNA of the fungi. They are unable to spark that repair mechanism at night. They only do it during the day. And so that's why we are applying this technology at night.
Yeah, this is a trial that we've run the first time this year. We are going to repeat it next year with things that we've learnt. Some of those really early trial results have shown that we can reduce the number of sprays. I think oh, that's Bruce Campbell ringing me. I'm not going to answer it. He's probably asking me how the talk went. So yeah, we're going to try it again. So we did find that we were able to reduce sprays. We did have a particularly bad year this year for powdery levels, but yeah, I think this has come up as well. It's about doing fast iterations and adapting. So we're going to raise the intensity of the light and keep going with the trial this year. The same vineyard wants to do it again, so that's obviously a good sign that they want to run the trial for the second year in a row. So hopefully that's my case studies that I was going to take you through, and hopefully what I've shown you is that it's very important to me and to us at Bragato that we have the industry engage in what our strategy should be, have them engage in what our key priorities should be for research, but also have them engage in that research. And if at the end of that they take up that research, then that's my job done, and that's what we're aiming to do. Oh, sorry, I should have just mentioned the people we're working with there. So these are the people that funded it. And the same as the Next Gen Viticulture, we have these workshops where we invite people out, and we have to run that in the evening so we could show them. But people came out and they're interested. They want to see what's happening and they want to ask questions. So yeah, it's the members inform the strategy. It's their strategy. It's for them. And we co-design and we co-innovate. This is really about that human interaction being so important. And the communication on that and the education is really important. If people don't know what we've done, if they don't know what we've found, then they're not going to adopt it, they're not going to trial it. So these are really the kind of the key 3 points, I think, that we want to take forward. So thank you very much. That's the end of my talk, and I will be happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you, Dr. Juliet. And there's some amazing work happening there, and I'm just processing that last one. I absolutely love that. And I text Bruce to let him know that you're on stage. Yeah. I sent a photo. He said, "Oh no, shit." I said, "Sorry." I said, "You just interrupted." A range of questions have come through, and we've only got a few minutes, so I'll go straight into those. The most important by democratic upvote was from Leonie Ray, which is, if I invited you to dinner, what wine would you bring?
Do you know what? It won't be Sauvignon Blanc, and I had a really, if you want a tip, I don't know if I should do that, should I? It's probably like biased. Don't tell anyone. But I had a really, a really lovely Chardonnay by Alchemy, a 2023 Chardonnay from Alchemy. It's just really, really good. But otherwise Sauvignon Blanc, that's pretty good as well.
With the changes in climate and rising temperatures, which you spoke about, how do you expect this to affect the wine industry? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, climate is something we have to face. It's a topic that's actually quite hard to get growers to rate as a high priority because it's not now. You kind of need a flood or a cyclone or a frost to bring that home. But I think this is something where we're looking at modelling what's happening in the region. I did hear of some research that has shown it's not going to change drastically in the near future for the top of the south. But that's also where, I hate to say it, but gene editing could come into play, where we can actually introduce better drought tolerance. We could introduce genetic diversity that is actually better suited to warmer climates, so perhaps needing less water.
I guess related question, there's a number coming through here, but in relation to the industry. So I love my wine, but when I drive over to Blenheim, I'm shocked by the amount of land cleared for grape growing. How does the industry continue to expand without clearing more land?
That's next generation viticulture, because that's actually saying we can produce double the crop from the same footprint, and not doubling the environmental footprint as well. So yeah, that's a lot to do with why that program was dreamed up.
Okay. There's a question here. Will the changes you're talking about, so from some of the case studies you've presented, will these changes influence the labour demand in the sector, which you know has been a huge issue, obviously? Yeah,
I mean, I think that's some of the things, the concepts that we've been talking about today. I think we still are going to need people to be looking at the data that's coming out. We're going to need people to look at the plants, and even if there's robots going up and down doing disease control, and there's autonomous harvesting even, well, is already, but pruning, some of these things that we haven't solved yet, if they're all mechanized, we still need people. We need people with tech skills, but I would say we need tech and people. I'm absolutely never going to let go of the fact that we're going to need humans in this industry.
A couple of probably quite quick ones for you. When you make vine clones that are disease resistant, does it impact the taste?
So like I said, we haven't made wine yet from them, but that will be the requirement. And we're going to have about 10,000 of them, so we'll find one that tastes good.
There's a reference here, obviously, wine over your way, and apple orchards here. The apple industry is installing netting to cover orchards, something we're very familiar with here. Has any work been done to test the benefits for netting canopy installation for vineyards?
No, and like I mentioned, I came from the kiwi fruit industry, and if you drive over or fly into Tauranga now, it's just everything's covered. And other parts of the world as well, they cover. It's mainly protection from the environment, so it's things like frost or disease pressure, or it's to irrigate away from the sun. It's not something that's been looked at in vineyards. I don't know how I feel about it. Well, I do know how I feel about it. I don't like it. I don't like the look of it on the land, but it may be something that has to come. I'm not sure.
And I just want to finish on one question, which is, I guess, bringing it out of your particular industry. We heard earlier from Moananui in the blue economy space. We have Cawthron Institute in the room as well. As a region, obviously, this is an area of strength for us. You focused on that engagement with sector. There's very large kind of CRI reforms and things, I think kicking in this week, are they? That's turning over. What do you see for the future of research, science and technology, and in your case applied knowledge, for our region as a strength for Te Tauihi? What do you think the potential is?
I think there's huge potential because we have all of the building blocks. So we do have strong connections with NMIT, EIT, EIT is not here, but NMIT, unis, Lincoln University, the PRO, the new public research organisation, which is bringing together the Scion, and they're going to be based in where my Lincoln team are. We already work with them, and I think the opportunity is greater access to government funding for some of that research, but we connect it up to what the industry wants, and that's relationships. We talk to them. And we build those relationships, and we're all working in the same direction for the outcome for industries.
Thank you very much, Dr. Juliet. Really appreciate your insights this afternoon.